All right, we are live. We are live once again for another magnificent Terran Tuesday. It's been beautiful over here. The weather has been holding up, and I've been getting a fair amount of writing done for my ongoing series. Just recently made the transition, or I should say, the additional publication. My short story series into Royal Road, which has been interesting. But how have you been, Black Knight? How's the days and the nights treating you over there in the future?
Aha. Well, I'm a bit tired, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
understandable. I've been working on the next chapter of Call of the Winding Road. My
yeah,
my current fantasy, shadow fantasy Substack series. Um, and I've I probably thought about some aspects of the world building and the
yeah,
economy of the that world, and therefore we have um, tonight's topic, which is
yes.
the fantasy or sci-fi logistics within our um, universes, which is probably well, I hope an interesting topic for most of our listeners.
Uh-huh. I think it's gonna
I
be,
Yeah, yeah,
and we have some listeners indeed chilling in the chat.
yeah.
Lily
Moral
Phil
officer
joining
Grant,
us.
I really put
More
yeah.
Officer Grant. Got some snow down there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
That's
can we can we can begin probably with how um, weather and different biomes affect
yeah.
logistics.
Oh, they heavily do, not just
Oh
logistics,
yeah,
but also
every
economic.
yeah.
Everything. I think that's one thing a lot of people, while writing literature or even sort of putting together, particularly in fantasy, they don't think too much about the weather and its components. Weather is just as important as your geographical location. The
The
directly
thing. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Like there are some places like Alaska here in the United States where there are more people with actual planes than there are cars because
Hmm.
there's so much locations that are just generally inaccessible. And of course, those planes have got to put up with certain weather conditions as well. And I know in your fantasy, yours is set in space, and you're talking about time in the back
Mm,
end, in the green room there,
yeah.
as we awaited the countdown. And
Yep.
now we're here. Tell us about that some more. Tell us how like time is kept, how it affects everything, and how your expansive universe kind of stays on track.
Well, this is perhaps one of the more forgotten aspects of the mm, pretty much, let's say, everything, not just logistics, but uh, travel. The and like we've seen in some um, modern reiterations of older franchises, especially sci-fi franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek, they completely forget about time. It's like time. It's not even a concept to them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's forgotten. Like travel time is nothing. They don't care,
Hmm.
which is why they've lost a sizable chunk of their audience, and they haven't gained new audiences. But to avoid rambling, um, you when you go somewhere and you're doing stuff, especially in space, time is perhaps like the most essential uh, resources ever. And because you can't just you well, unless you're in some universe where you have near either instantaneous or near instantaneous movement in
Yeah.
space and time, like Stargate, let's say.
Hmm.
I think you watched it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have these gates. So but even with them there is like there is the time aspect. And of course they have, as a device, they have like a different issue, um, because you can block them, you can do other stuff, you can uh, chuck bombs through them, but yeah, but I digress.
Hmm.
And so imagine that you're not going to, let's say, we're not talking about warfare, we're just talking about like a simple exploration. You hop in on your ship, you load it with some supplies like food, uh, water. Okay, let's say water. It's not beer, but like in many cases they'll love beer more. But let's say water, food, the essentials like ammunition, like let's say there is something that you have to defend yourself from, medical supplies, spare clothes, spare parts, of course, because you need the fucking spare parts.
Hmm.
The fuel, of course. Without fuel, you're screwed. And you take the travel time needed to get from point A to point B, which point point B in this case is like, let's say some unexplored planet,
Yeah.
and you get there. Let's say it takes you 50 days to get there. You get there. You had expended like, let's say, half your fuel. You got there. During these 50 days, you may have used some of your spare parts, because all machines have their vulnerabilities. They are not unbreakable. They will break. Even the best machines will break. You have eaten and drank some of your food. Let's say you ate like 50 days worth of food and water you consume, and you got that. And then you have like a window of time uh, until your tech begins to break down, and you lack the spare parts to fix it.
Hmm.
Your ammunition is used up. If you bump into some danger down on the planet, and but the most important part of it is like, is your immediate supply situation with like food and water and medication. Because without it, you'll die. You
Yeah.
just die. And this period of time what you took to get to from point A to point B, this is like, if something happens, this is the like 50 days is the realistic logistical response for any resupply force or a rescue force
Yeah.
to get to you. And a lot of a lot of let's say current day Hollywood and modern uh, fiction, they just they never even acknowledge that
Hmm.
factor. They don't even mention it. They don't mention it, which is, I mean, unless you have like some plot devices, like I said, like, oh yeah, there is a Stargate down there, and Like you snap your fingers and a let's say a Toyota truck loaded with food and water and spare part just like rolls through the Stargate, and you're haha voila, you're resupplied.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you just follow the rules of, of everything that you've already set up, um, you will have like a specific logistical response time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to consider the fact that you may not have like an endless number of vessels which can make the trip to supply you or to save you, to help you. Let's say you have like 3 ships, just 3, and one of these is yours. That also factors into the time too, because for them to get to you, it will take 50 days, and for them to go back, it will also take 50 days. And this is also something which you have to think of. Of course, you if it's not necessary to um, shower the reader or the viewer with like too much details, you can just like you can mention it in passing or show it, or just show and mention it just like for a few seconds. It is enough, especially in visual storytelling. It's plenty. Or let's say a comic strip, in a game, or in a TV series, in a movie. Um, but if you when you establish it, you have to be consistent and follow it. Um, because otherwise you'll lose your audience, most of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
you have to pace it out well. That's for sure. And especially say with time, because you don't want to feel like your characters are really just teleporting from
mhm,
one
mhm.
location to the
Yeah,
next.
yeah.
And at times that can work, but you have to really weave it in correctly. Like you said, it helps if you mention it sometime in the background, or somebody can pull from what they've already read that may answer some questions that pop up of, well, we were in location A, now we're in location B suddenly, a la the Stargate explanation. Hey, you were on a desert planet one moment, and now you're in the middle of a jungle. Insert
Mhm, mhm.
Stargate here,
Yeah.
things like these. I guess you'd call them like explanatory MacGuffins placed throughout your literature, which I think is a great place to really embed these, is in the middle, because often when you're dealing with your sort of your moments of teleportation, I find are towards sort of like the middle end, and
Mhm,
your final acts, when the action's happening, when your characters are on the go. Of course, this is assuming you're not dealing with the story, say like Lord of the Rings, where your characters are often constantly on the go. Then you might want to do it in reverse, where instead of them constantly being on the go, now they're suddenly stopped. You kind of want to hit that opposite to help create a bit of conflict for them, change the
intention.
scenery. Yeah.
Yeah,
And of course,
yeah.
that's also where the logistics come in as well, where you can pull a lot from logistics to create obstacles for your characters. If it's a personal story, it's not a large story about an entire kingdom on multiple characters doing 1,000 different things. Um, for instance, say like simple right off the back, thunderstorm. Your characters are on horseback riding through a thunderstorm. Obviously, they have to find some form of shelter.
Yeah,
Then you have to,
immediately.
immediately,
Or let's say it's if it's a sandstorm, even worse.
even worse. And even then, the logistics of weather. What are the differences between a sandstorm and a thunderstorm? What are the threatening differences? What are the chronic differences? What are the things that are going to be sticking around afterwards? For instance, I live in an area that actually does have sandstorms from time to time, though not horrifically terrible ones that you should be afraid of. but usually the
They're
day,
still not to ignore,
yeah, but it's impossible to ignore. But usually the day after,
underestimate them.
everything's sort of just covered in sand. It's not just you, it's everything. And all of these sort of plot points or these small elements that make up your world can become major vital life signs for you to help shift your story or provide conflict where otherwise there may be none, or even, dare I say it, to keep the reader engaged because it doesn't sound too nonsensical. I'll actually point towards a I don't want to say widely used, but it's, yeah, let's go widely used cliche in literature, in movies, particularly horror films, where a character gets knocked out and then they're knocked out for 5 hours. Then they wake up and it's dark outside. We've all seen that scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a bit of logistics here in the sense of how the human body actually functions. If a Let's say if you have a very knowledgeable person watching your film, they could come to the conclusion that this is beyond unrealistic because the human body actually can't stay knocked out unconscious for that long of a period without receiving large amounts of brain damage. And if a story or a writer takes the appropriate time to actually explore these elements that are otherwise cliches that we do see everywhere else, you can create this uniqueness about your piece of literature, makes it stand out that much, adds in information that people can dwell on. And that's a hidden aspect of logistics, is that's where a lot of the information of your world can come from. Like, how do you arm an army with swords? Who takes care of all the horses? Where do the spaceships go? You know, all of these can play in and be tools for the or ammunition even for the author to use to build conflict and keep the story going in a natural pace within this world they're creating, while at the same time giving an insight to how the background of that world operates.
Yeah, it's when you delve in and begin to research um, the logistics of like the, let's say, the logistics of the Roman legions, um, or the Greek armies of like the city states, you quickly learn that it's not just food, it's not just food and water. um, even in antiquity you needed like a quite the complex industry to even set up the logistic chain. It's not just a matter of transporting all the stuff that makes your army tick, um, from one point to another, but you have to have the industry base to manufacture and maintain the stuff that you need to supply your people with. um, and it's surprisingly much. It's not just like sacks of potatoes, let's say, and barrels of water. No, no, no. You need ropes. um, you need worked timber. You need um, leather, worked leather, tanned leather, cloth, different types of cloth. You need oils. You need lubricants for the wagon wheels. You need nails. You need tools, and the tools break down, like they wear down. So you need like more tools. You can't just like, yes, I have these like nice repair tools, these like scissors and let's say hammers and saws with which I can like build forts and build bridges and then or like fix blacksmith tools to fix my armor, or make spare arrows, or like fix my sword. These also wear down. So you need to have like logistic base to supply you with a constant stream of stuff. Um, and of course, in a, let's say, in a fantasy setting, you probably have wizards, and you most probably have like some exotic items like potions, magical potions, or scrolls, or like usable magical items which have their own logistics, their own production base and maintenance base, and let's say a recharge base. If you have like a magic sword that has the ability to become shrouded with fire, or like say ice or lightning, but it has like specific number of charges, and your soldiers rely on these weapons. But when the charges are out, like they become like normal weapons, or like they're just less powerful. So you'll have to have like someone to recharge them, or you have to transport them back. Maybe they require like magical laboratories or something to be recharged. So you maybe have to invest extra resources and time, again time, to make like extra copies of these swords, so your or other weapons, so your soldiers are not left without them. But you also mentioned something which I often mention. Where do you like where do the ships go? Where do the tanks go? Where do the starfighters go? Or in a fantasy setting, let's say like a medieval fantasy setting, where do your flying unicorns go? To the stables, or something like that. Who trains them? Who like makes them rideable? Um, who wrangles them? Who catches them in the wild? Who grows them? Who takes care of them? Who makes the all the gear that is needed to ride one? This is it's as I previously mentioned, it's not uh, overly like you could not you should not overly rely on like constantly swarming the reader or the viewer with too much information. But it's quite the great idea to mention here and there how things get there, like how is your ship maintained, who repairs it, where do the spare parts come, like maybe not everything, not every tiny little detail. Let's say, oh yeah, the shoelaces of the legionaries, they come from this province, or the nails that their boots are like uh, fixed with, they come from over there. Whoever like group of, or like a blacksmith makes them. No, it's unless you find a way to incorporate the entire, or like even just a small part of the logistical chain into your story, which is in my opinion, it's good. As you mentioned, it engages the reader or the viewer on another level. You're muted.
Oh, my bad. I didn't even know how that happened. I thought mine. Okay, well, what I was saying is that it adds depth to your world and it adds texture. It gives it this well, like I said, depth, that there's more going on beyond the story you're reading, that there's other lives. It brings it to life that people live here, or creatures live here, some sort of society lived here or used to live here, even because let's say you're writing in a form of like post-apocalyptic. I think then the idea of how everything used to get done can really help you lace the world with intrigue. And that's another aspect throughout every single type of story you create. Your world can breathe intrigue. And through that intrigue, you can engraft the reader not only into your story, not only get invested in your characters, but your world as a whole. It brings it to life, it adds character to the world to the point where the world itself can become exactly that, a character. People fall in love with worlds. It's not just Star Wars or Luke Skywalker people fell in love with, but it's the entire sort of rebellion, this galaxy with all these different planets and star systems, and
And back
obviously
to
in
tanks.
exactly, and in various forms of literature, that's what these long running series heavily bank on, is the investment of the world, not just the characters. The characters help bring that world to life, but when that world becomes a character unto itself, it can go beyond that. It can be more than just a setting, and it should be because all these logistics bring in intrigue, they bring in consequence, and then they also bring in culture. Culture is refined by logistics, and logistics are heavily influenced by various types of cultures. So, when people think about how their worlds should operate, it doesn't always have to be just a hand wave of mention a line here, mention a line there, and never bring it up again. No, you want to reward your reader. When you mention something unto your reader, bring it up again. Show them, oh, you remembered this piece, and now it becomes more important. Now there's texture to the world. Now there's
Yeah.
consequence. Now there's something else there. Every single aspect is a chance for you to create sort of like this, how would I put it, what's the terminology I'm looking for? It's a chance for you to reward your reader with future conflict or consequence. You say, here's the piece of information, look at it unfold. And
uh,
I think these can
Satisfaction. Yeah.
yeah, it's satisfaction. It adds thrills. It makes people smile, and it gives them a surprise, particularly if the thing seems maybe at first small, a mention, sort of a unique thing about the world that's clever. And then it comes in again. It becomes important. It becomes part of the plot itself, or otherwise its existence to the plot has been finally unveiled to the reader in this magnificent aha moment. So there's a lot you can do with all this. It's all tools. It's all tools. And if you want to build a world, if you want to write a series in a unique civilization or setting, you have to think about these things, because these are what's not only going to ground your characters to that world, but it's going to give it life and texture at the exact same time, as well as set up boundaries, principles, rules to follow, and understanding and investments for your readers. All these things can be embedded within the simple asking of a question. How does this happen? How are my characters on a floating island somewhere in a alternate universe? How does all of this operate? And then once those questions have been asked and possibly answered, you got to ask yourself, how do I unveil this unto them without compromising my story, which is an art in itself.
Yes, that's I agree. It's art on itself. It's perhaps why in the very beginning when I engaged in storytelling, I wasn't that keen on trying to explain to my players, to my listeners, some of the deeper aspects of how things worked, or why things happened the way that they did. But later, years later, I am no
Yeah.
longer like, well, of course, like all things, it took like a lot of time to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And I will give you an example or two. Let's say the sci-fi example, the most recent example is the final third part of the Province of Terrans series, again on my Substack, which, you know, it's a vote your adventure story, and then the readers can directly engage and vote for one of three choices for the next chapter.
Yeah.
And in this case, it came down to logistics because they chose that path. Um, and their first choice was to grab like one of three um, reinforcement groups, which was like fleet support wing of
Mm-hmm.
modular ships.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would directly vote to go after the supply fleet of an invading force. Um, and in particular, after the fuel tankers of the fleet, and the medical and food uh, rations of the
Mm-hmm.
fleet. And mind you, this is like an invasion force. They have a bunch of soldiers. They have divisions, like tens of thousands of troops. In this case, like I think it was about 300 plus
Yeah.
thousand,
Yeah.
including the crews on the ships because they have to eat too, um, and the marines on the ships because of course they have to protect their ships, and the pilots on the carriers. It's like a lot of mouths to feed, and of course the ships, the starfighters and the bombers and everything, the shuttles which supply the troops, and they have to land the troops on the planet or anywhere else. They also want fuel. They need fuel. They need spare parts. They need everything. And the readers went after that. They went after all of that, and
Logistic.
they practically won the battle through screwing up the enemy logistic train.
Mm-hmm.
They completely ruined it, and pretty much in the end, the battle was won with quite few casualties. Because if you can't move your ship out of the way, then someone will come and just like um, push small asteroid towards your ship, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
get screwed or something. Uh, and the second example, was again from the fantasy series called The One He Wrote, which I'm going to post after the stream, like the newest episode chapter, where this kingdom, we have this kingdom where the main protagonists they are citizens of this kingdom, and they have lots of rivers. There, it's pretty much their kingdom heavily relies on small ships, fast small ships with rowers and of course sails,
Mm-hmm.
who transport people and cargo along these water lanes, these water roads, pretty much these rivers. And in some cases, they have the canals to connect different rivers. And most of their big cities are on the rivers, which is similar
Mm-hmm.
with us, you know. And I have incorporated that heavily uh, into the world building and everything in that story. So I really like that part where you make the logistics uh, like another character in your story.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way of really sort of getting that investment going from readers, you know. And it's perfect for series. And I think if anybody's thinking of writing a series, you should take your world seriously because people want to come back and not only visit characters but visit worlds. They get in love with worlds. You know, people are in love with the Shire from Lord of the Rings. They're in. They invest their time into all these things, and when we lace these things together within our literature, we're giving them more to explore and ask more questions. And that's one thing that I think is something that you know authors really don't think of enough is how can you get these intriguing questions into the minds of your readers beyond just like what's the hook at the at the end point of the story to punctuate a good story, but what's something you can embed within their minds about your world, about how things operate, to keep them thinking and want to come back and revisit that world. I think many people would love to have revisited the Middle Earth more than they did. You know, people today are basically scholars of Tolkien's work and things of this nature, and a big aspect of that, which has become this cultural pillar, is the world itself, is beyond the ring, is beyond the characters, but Middle Earth itself is this existing place in people's minds and hearts because it's just been given that much love to be brought back to life, you know, or brought to life. I've met a number of authors who actually had these magnificent ideas for worlds, but they did not take the task of building them seriously enough as they wanted to sort of hand wave their way through it all, you know, not have to
Mm.
deal with the logistics here, not have to deal with the deeper aspects and consequences thereof. Because whenever you add a interesting or fantastical element into your world, it has to have consequence on everything around it because a world is like this puzzle piece that you and try like an ecosystem you try to put together, and if things just don't appropriately work, you're going to fail at getting the reader appropriately invested beyond your character because they're you know
Mm-hmm.
it seems easier than it is, and it doesn't seem as important as it is. Um, because if you could start building a world before, say, writing your fiction, and asking these minute questions, getting them answered, you'll find that you're going to find a an aspect, something like a guideline to help your characters along through this world, as well as give them depth as depth on a greater meaning. Because we have those cookie cutter characters we all run into, and a big aspect of cookie cutter is they're just generally the good guy, generally the bad guy. But if you answer the question of where does this character come from? What is that culture like? Why is that culture like that? Then you start getting this that intrigue into your character. Then you get the answers that people otherwise probably would not have asked of why is this person evil beyond evil's sake? Was it just something bad that happened to them? Or maybe they come from a very harsh land, which led to a severely rigid culture that was much less empathetic than, say, another culture within the exact same world where your main characters might have come from. All of these give that depth and give that intrigue, and also give guidance to how characters would act within that world, and even what words they choose to express themselves within the company they have.
Yes, it's when you have this additional aspect um, of your world building, when you know where things come and how they get from let's say Rome to Egypt, or um, Netherlands to Japan, because it's like um, yeah, how did like how did the guns, like the muskets and the gunpowder got from let's say from Netherlands or from Spain to Japan? How did they get there? Well, you can just say, oh yeah, well, we'll just load them on ships, but these ships have crews. They must have like accurate enough navigation to and skilled navigators to sail across the like half the known or and some and part of the unknown world to get from Europe to Japan. It's not just like, yeah, they just you use ships. Period. No. It's like the reader is will be much more interested if you give them some information of what kind of ships. Maybe tell them that um you have like a famous navigator who is like the lone survival of a on a previous trip, and they had somehow survived, got to Japan, and then they painstakingly uh, convinced, like they spent times in imprisonment. They convinced the shogun, for example, let's say, or some daimyo, to let them go, and they traveled through China and through the steppes, dodging bandits and corrupt rulers, and like it took them like let's say 3 years to get back to Europe. This is just mentioning that it's like infinitely more interesting to the reader than just like, yeah, we just put stuff on ships and it gets there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because we have this a mention of the movie Avatar, which Wrangler says that's
Mm.
what drove Avatar. People weren't really into the Na'vi; they were into Pandora, which I think is very true. Because you think of the Na'vi, what's so special about their culture that you haven't seen before? It doesn't seem to be that influence from the world around them. They live in this big, wild environment with dangerous creatures and man-sized plants, and There's all this fauna everywhere, but not only do they act like the masters of it, but they have nowhere to go as a society. They have peaked. They said, "This is our world. We're full of peace, happiness, prosperity. We have maybe a little schisms here or there, but we're just oh so perfect
Yeah,
of a society."
they're channeling the kumbaya.
Exactly. They're channeling the kumbaya. There's no internal strife
Wow.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then there's nothing, like I said, nothing special. We've seen the Navi before. They're just a repainted, I guess, what we call noble savage. They're the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
repainted noble savage, and the world is beautiful, but it has no effect on them. It means nothing to them. It's this simple world that they have dominated and mastered primarily, when frankly the world should have the largest effect on them, beyond, oh, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose that, that's going to ruin our perfect ecosystem. It's like, no, you have giant predators out there and stuff. You should be in the villages with huge walls, worry about seasonal effects and things of this nature, but it never comes up in any of those movies. They created an unharmed society that exists to be picked on by the humans.
Yeah, that was like the thing which personally took me away, like drew me out of the experience after the first like half an hour to 40 minutes of visual spectacle, because it was like you said, it's beautiful, it looks great, um and with all the gadgets and the colorful environment and the animals and the monsters and the guns and the vehicles. um to me, in Avatar, the humans, who are presented as the villain, they have like a much more fleshed out
Yeah,
logistics.
yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Because the humans are under actual constraint. It's not fairy tale perfect land. We mastered everything here. It's we are
We
in a
need
desperate position, and
Unobtainium. Yeah, yeah.
we need. And I think that's the big sin of the Navi. They don't need. I guess you could say they're trying to protect their tree. They're trying to do all that, but there's no internal strife there. They just are. And story wise, it's just very passive and not that interesting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
humans
that's
need. The humans have internal conflict. The humans are more fleshed out because some of them have to be the bad guy, but not all of them do. Well, on the Navi, on the other hand, you barely get any of that. Not anything with super duper consequence, anyways.
yeah. You have like some vague description of the planet and this and that, but it's all like overly kumbaya-ish. Um,
Yeah, it's like a
and as you say, they don't have any like, they have, let's say, they have evolved past, like they're too perfect. They have evolved past any issues. They have completely mastered their environment, which, well, even us with all of our knowledge and technological advancements, even we haven't perfectly mastered our environment.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's impossible. I mean, if you, let's say, if they said that, yeah, they have this Navi magic, and they are one with the planet, and the planet doesn't eat them. Like the predators, they're not eating them, and they just like clap their hands
Mm.
and they sing their songs, and everything is hunky dory. It's perfect. They have no want. They they do not get sick. Did we even see them be sick? Any of them?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, they were one with nature. They were one with the animals. They were one with the planet. Not nothing was eating them. Or
Yeah.
I think there were like some of them who hunted animals, but they used like other animals. They rode different bigger animals
Hmm.
so that they it's like huh.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a study in boring, really. Like
Mm, yeah.
because I don't want to say boring because there is interesting aspects, but there's no conflict. You know, there's a lack of thrill there. You explore it for a little while, and it seems interesting. You can see, oh, okay, yeah, there's a lot here, but it's like all the conflict, all the growth is already done. They just are. This is who they are and who they will be for the next 10
Forever.
quadrillion
Yeah.
years because they're
Yeah.
perfect. They're just so perfect. You know, that's
Uh,
boring. That's boring. No one likes perfect. Your logistics shouldn't be
maybe
perfect.
maybe if they had like a movie where they showed them reaching that, like
Hmm.
how they had to suffer, like generation of them, or just like told us like an
Something.
ancient story of something, showed us like some cave painting on how the ancestors died, like suffering trying to master the environment, and
Mm.
how they learned to tame the animals and then meld with them and blah 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 blah. Maybe that would be better. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it could have brought more interest, obviously, but I think I could have used a bit more internal conflict within their tribe. You know, that could have been a much larger driving force. They had more of a culture to them because they were very cliche in nature. The
Yeah, it's
Navi.
if they um would look into the history of the Americas, they would see that pretty much all the native peoples, they had like uh, a ton of conflicts with each other, and they have
Hmm.
also internal conflicts. It's like it's real life. Maybe they just wanted to make it like into a super beautiful utopia. Maybe
Yeah.
that was their goal. I don't know.
Yeah, it just kind of for me came off as too much of another humans bad movie,
Hmm.
and that's just it was just one too many cliches atop another cliche atop another cliche, and it was thrillless. It looked pretty, but there wasn't much there. It's like it missed it missed its own heart. you know, is missing
Yeah,
a heart. And logistics help build that, create that heart, if you will. Um, and it just that's pretty much all I gotta say about it. It's missing some heart. If you're in a world, you're in a world building, think about how things operate. Think about how they affect each other. Think about how they affect your main character and whatever quest they're going on. How does the weather affect them? What are they going to need in their backpack? Ask yourself that question. What is it that they're going to need in their backpack while traversing a particular um, area of the world? Or what are they going to need in their cargo hold? What are they going to need to protect them from the environment? And then weave those into your story. Allow them to become tools for not only your characters to use, but you as well to add in interesting and unique twists throughout your story. All of these are tools that can be used to develop interest and push that narrative forward in an organic sense. Because, the more you add to your world, the more organic it can be. Or if you just kind of throw everything at someone at once and do absolutely nothing with it, then you kind of risk of just having way too much narration, and then you risk losing the pacing of your story. So think about what's important to your character on their journey. Think about how the world will affect them and weave that in. And think about the things that are not important to your character's journey, but maybe in the world. Maybe you can add in a little bit here or there. Don't overdo it. Don't get too excited. Don't spend two paragraphs using the word as you know to your character to describe something they know because you want the reader to know. This is something I also run into with amateur writing, the as you know clause.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you use like various ways and tricks to convey the world building, and better yet, like, because you cannot realistically, let's be real, you can't just show everything. It's it
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
it's too much. Like, sometimes you just have to be efficient and do not waste the reading time of your reader, and just like um, compact something in a single, or like a couple lines of
Hmm.
and just be like, yes, this is how, this is where it comes from. That's it.
Yeah.
um and in some rare instances, you probably could use like some mentor archetype to teach like some younger character, and explain them something, but you just you don't you shouldn't overuse it. Like, it
Hmm.
has to be something important and something that is major to the plot, and uh, moves everything forward. um so you don't just you don't annoy and overstay your explanational welcome, so to speak.
Hmm.
uh well, in some cases it depends. It depends on what type of story you're writing. Is it like a huge long series, or is this like singular issue story, like a short story where you don't actually have lots of space, and um, you can't just dump a whole lot of things. Then you have to pick um, items of world building and logistical um, aspects of everything, by order of importance, but it's like order of magnitude. What is the most important, as you mentioned? Like, what do they absolutely need to have in their backpacks to survive? Trail rations. Let's say some like med pack, or water purifying pills, or let's say uh, quinine pills if they're going into the jungle, or something like cream against um, let's say bug bites, if there are like dangerous bugs, and you're not 100% sure that you are not allergic to them. Like, this will absolutely save your character's life. Yes, yes, you have to have it. It's in your backpack, and you will either show it, or mention it. Let's say, oh yeah, don't forget to have, like, pack your quinine pills. Like, there is malaria in the jungle. That that works. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, yeah. That's another part of logistics, especially if your characters are going on an adventure, and that's medicine. And that's climate and the changing of weather and how
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
affects them as well.
Oh yeah.
Especially for the reader who gets engrafted into a world is often the reader who wants that world to make sense. Well, everybody wants that world to make sense, but nobody wants that world to make sense more than the reader who's engrafted. And there's nothing that's going to make them lose interest more than the world that's not engrafting. That the world is not really, things don't piece together correctly. This kind of goes to the point that I noticed about Stephen King. Technically, and I say technically, all his worlds are woven together. But when I looked into the weaving of this universe of his, it made me actually like his stories less. And it even compromised some of his stories because it was
Which
clear.
which which one? Which one is
Um,
that?
Stephen King, the author,
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and his
Yes, yeah.
different pieces of literature. And that's because it was quite clear that he weaved together the idea that all his stories were in the same sort of quote unquote universe, if you will, retroactively after he had written a bunch of them. And he had to create this very convoluted and full of itself methodology to get them to function appropriately. And it just ruined some stories, some
Oh yeah.
excellent standalone stories that needed no universal tie-ins. Um, so when you're thinking logistics, think before the fact and not after the fact, at
Hmm.
least
Hmm.
as much as you can, because
Yeah,
you
as much as you
can
can.
compromise a lot trying to just change things, put all this in there, thinking you're doing it just right, and not realizing you're breaking some rules, you're breaking some chains, you're breaking something that was already set in motion or in bounds, in stone in your universe that people liked, and then you had to add in or try to fix or try to answer something that should have been fixed, added in, or answered at the beginning. So approach a story, approach a world thinking about these things, even if it's just a bunch of notes that you're not really going to share with most other people, just yourself. Allow those notes, allow this world to be a guiding light of where you should go, what you should avoid, and what your characters would and would not experience on these journeys. And don't try to do it afterwards. It's too late. Okay. You got to do it at the beginning, or you risk a lot. You risk to break a lot, especially if you're trying to continuously write a particular story or a particular series. You don't want to overly compromise stuff, or create obstacles where you never thought they would be and have no contingency for them.
Yeah, it reminds me of because I didn't watch all of the episodes. I'm
Mhm.
talking about the Amazon's Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? I'm not sure if you watched it, but
Oh no, no, I didn't.
no,
I heard of it, but
it's bad, and it's bad primarily because they absolutely botched down. Apart from everything else, they screwed up, but they botched down the entire logistic side of things, which Tolkien writes about, and of course, then you have the movies, the Peter Jackson movies, where you clearly show, like, you can see, you're shown the passage of time. You see how it takes them time and effort, and they use supplies, and they have all of their stuff. Their traveling gear, they have cooking gear, they have various types of clothing and cloaks and um, all kinds of supplies. And then you see how Sam and Frodo, when they go into Mordor, they kind of they don't have enough food, they don't have enough lamb's bread uh, for the return trip. um, it's
Yeah.
like when you watch, like I watched this one of the episodes about the not hobbits, the not real hobbits. They're
Hmm.
abysmal, like everything about them
Yeah.
is horrible. So they they tell you that these not hobbits, um, they're kind of nomad farmers. They mention that. First of all, what the fuck is a nomad farmer?
Yeah.
Do,
Would you
do
like
they
plan it
like
and go? You leave and hope it
what
doesn't
the
die?
fuck is this? Do you have like special wagons with mini gardens in them?
Yeah.
Is this how they're nomad farming? Yeah, but anyways, it's it was really bad. It's like when they travel from point to point,
Uh-huh.
they they're always clean. They have no traveling gear. They just snap their fingers and pretty much like um if I was in my if I was in my kitchen with my slippers and my uh, let's say my tracksuit and my hoodie, my pants, like the home stuff that I wear. I
Hmm.
just like I suddenly reach the gates of Mordor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's ludicrous, insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're dealing with a lot of this, and it risks just pulling the person out of the story.
Yeah.
Same with historicals. You try to create a historical fiction, but you add in too much fiction. That kind of literature and entertainment often draws people who are historically inclined, and they are the easiest to displease with just a bit too much
Yeah.
liberties taken. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's if you're a real fan of the Nords, the Vikings and stuff, it's really hard to actually find a piece of fiction that truly embodies that culture, because I believe too much of that culture just strictly offends too much of our culture today to be truly embodied in literature and in cinemas and things of this nature, that people of the modern era just don't have what it takes to do it.
Yeah.
And
That's,
because of this, people over time get a sense of a falsehood of what that era was like. And that's sort of a risk of leaving out historical logistics and cultures and how people operated. For instance, you would not get many Nordic um, female laborers, because hard labor like that, being out in the sun, cutting down trees and doing like that, was often seen as men's work, because they were a hyper masculine society. They were also a hyper feminine society. There was females work and things of that nature. And this unfortunately offends too much of modern day culture, and you don't see it brought up too often. And if you did, you'd get such a much more in-depth insight to a foreign culture. And
mm,
because we often refuse to really give insight to this, we are actually removing aspects of an otherwise unique culture that can bring in um, gray spots and depth and critique. all left at the wayside, because our own history and the logistics thereof and the things that people had to deal with and the cultures people had to deal with are too offensive to the modern creator. I don't like to say reader or viewer, because how would they know? It's not being created. It's not being brought to them. The offense has to be found within the creators to remove such things.
Oh boy. Um, yeah, especially when they clearly rewrite history uh, like a desperate attempt to be politically correct, and as you mentioned, like shows about the Norse, they are especially um, in the current day and age, they're
Uh-huh.
especially like they're guilty of this. Joe, I'm not going to even go into detail of like
Uh-huh.
replacing actual historical um, um, persons with like
Mm-hmm.
changing their sex and their nationality. For example, in Vikings, I think there was like one of the Thanes whom they replaced with a black woman,
Uh-huh.
which is, uh, eh. But there are like lots of things, like little things which they completely ignore or replace with almost like modern like um, things and stuff, instead of just, yes, have this like this linen armor, like have the fucking linen armor. It's not expensive, just fucking make it. Stop using these super expensive colored black leather jerkins that literally no one used, because they were expensive
Yeah.
as hell. And as you know, probably know, that the color black was really really expensive. Make something black, it was expensive. They're just like, yes, let's make it um historically inaccurate. Let's just ignore the absolute mountains of historical
Mm-hmm.
data which they can easily find with with a simple Google search. And they had like written accounts, even because they weren't idiots. They could write and read, and then these creators in quotation marks say, "Ah, no, we don't care." Like, oh no, um, they didn't have women in the raiding parties. Oh, let's shove women there, no problem, because we um, misinterpreted that one or two bureau sites somewhere in Norway, um, of super important, high noble females, um, or priesthood, because they had female priests and magicians in the
Uh-huh.
Norse culture, which they were highly influential, super important. They had like special magic abilities attributed to them, and they were often taken like only these like particular individuals, and there were like a very select few of them. If if i'm if i'm remembering correctly, I think they were taken to the sites of the battles, so they could perform their magic, or invoke blessings from the gods. But they themselves were not fighting per se, but they were quite important. And since they were part of the spiritual logistical support of the army. If they
Hmm.
died, they would have been buried with great honors. They would have been given like burial goods, weapons, horses,
Hmm.
chariots, like everything, because they were that important.
Yeah. And all that is excellent texture for your world and in depth aspects of your world, all thrown for a all thrown aside for a fictional, fantastical, and lackluster, dull fantasy. You're
Postmodernist
watering
bullshit.
down. You're watering down not only truth but actually great potential for storytelling for the sake of for the sake of dull fantasy. You know, there's
Yeah,
not much there to pull from. It's not that interesting. You're replacing the actual interesting stuff.
they don't care. They don't care,
Yeah.
and that's one of the huge main reasons why they are failing, massively failing. Um, I I forgot to ask you about like the extra dimensional logistics of your writing.
Hmm. Well, there's really not much to them because they anybody who's familiar with my writing on 90% of my short stories take place in a singular world where there's a particular faction who's inclined towards more mystical elements. I would call magic because I actually added in texture and depth into it that there's much more than that. But they do have a form of portal technology that they use to rapidly travel and move goods within their territories. But they're a very secluded people with some of the smallest territories in all of the lands. And exterior of their territories, they really don't have any portal technology set up to be used because it's not something that they can just summon. It's sort of like more of like a catalyst, a device that's used to channel a particular type of energy that summons the portals that allows them to go to point A to point B. And this is only found within their lands. And this was done to sort of create the appropriate constrictions because if portal technology exists throughout the entirety of a landscape, it completely alters almost everything about it. You're
Mm.
going to alter culture, you're going to alter language, you're going to alter so much that instant travel provides that it would essentially destroy what I was building.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So there's a lot put in place. You know, you need those. This is the importance when building a world. You need to set foundations and stones and stop gaps because there's many different worlds, fictional worlds that have portal technology that much like the Navi, they refuse to actually address on a deeper level what the ongoing effects would be of having that technology available. You know, why isn't everybody using it 24/7 to do absolutely everything, you know? Um, and you see these general worlds or fantasy worlds where it's just a thing in the background, so small, doesn't mean anything. No, if you have the capability to build wormholes or anything for instant travel, and then they have the capability to be widely available, it will be at a focal point in your world because travel is always a focal point in any fictional world. No matter how much people don't think about it or don't notice it, travel, how people get from one location to the next, is beyond important and does shape almost everything around them. it should shape the prices in your fictional economy, depending on how fast things get from one location to the next. If they're not fast, then that means that there's certain goods and items that are a plethora in one location, widely available, that in another, they're not there at all. You know, if you're in a fantasy world, there's certain herbs that may be used for medicines, that are used that grow in a desert mountainous region that don't grow in a forest. All of this is logistical. And when you add in a portal system, none of that matters anymore. It doesn't matter if you're in the forest. You can open up a portal to the desert and grab the herb right off the side of a mountain somewhere. So
Yeah, like
portals, there's an art to introducing portals into your world.
you're almost describing the transporters from Star Trek, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, yeah, they have they have the transports, and they can pretty much go anywhere. Some
anywhere.
civilizations have so advanced transports that they can transport people and material over light years, not just like kilometers, light years. It's insane. And I mean, they've introduced some constraints, but as a whole, I don't see. I mean, there is like changes, cultural changes of stuff, but um, yeah, I I would have loved to see more changes, and let's say have something like they have it in very few episodes where the transports kind of malfunction, um, and the people they teleport actually don't like, they either die, or they melt together, or they kind of vanish, they turn into
Yeah.
energy or something like that. This is like, yes, even if you actually introduce some kind of um, transport technology or magic or something, it has to have drawbacks. Otherwise, it would be way, way, way too, how should I say it, broken.
Well, yeah, yeah. You have to have some kind of limitations, and you got to be careful about those limitations because if one too many people go through that and just disappear, no one's going to want to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And people
that
are going to ask that question. People are, your readers have a sense of like the survivability about amongst themselves. They're going to ask why people keep going through this thing if people just keep dying on the other end. It doesn't make sense.
or they materialize in the walls or something.
Yeah.
Unless like it is like they're in a desperate like desperate situation. Uh, for example, I do have uh, in Star Shutter, I have something that's similar to teleportation, but it's shorter range. It requires a telepath. That's pretty much default space. They do not turn you into energy and rematerialize you somewhere else, and it's hard to do. That you don't have like infinite numbers of telepaths everywhere, and they are it's dangerous, and they usually employ this as a like a last resort when things are really really dire, or as a weapon, because every good type of transportation should be generally used as a weapon.
Yeah. We could probably dig into this even for another couple of hours, but we are
Maybe.
coming to near the end. We are technically are at the end. So I think that fits the final thoughts section.
Mhm.
Why don't we go ahead and share where people can find your work, man? People can read what you've been working on.
Yeah, well, people can find me on my Substack, theblackknight.substack.com, where you can read my uh, serialized science fiction stories, and I have like a number of free novellas for you. My current uh, work is titled Call of the Winding Road, which is a shadow fantasy novella. Is this it's my newest work. And if you like to grab a book to um, help me buy coffee, for example, you can go to Amazon and buy any of my Star Shutter series books, of which there are 7 of them till now. I'm working on the eighth, and two short story collections, mainly of Sword and Dragon and Blood of Tyrant, including my singular published fantasy, Lord of Bones.
Epic. All those links will be found below, or at least his Amazon link, I think. But
Yeah.
I'm James Esparza. Thank you all for joining us here today. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you come back next week. Same bad channel, same bad time. Check it out. And if you're part of the replay crew, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. Subscribe, share with your friends, and come back next week, man. Love to see you live. But with that, we are out of here. Have a good rest of your day and get
Have
some
fun,
sleep.
guys and gals.
There you go. Have some fun doing whatever it is you do. Not too much fun. Bye bye now.
Not too much.
Arrivederci. Ciao. Those
Ha.
other words people say. This is a long one.